Talking about the Supreme Court's decision today letting a Texas abortion law remain in place for now. The ruling puts everyone in this fight in a unique holding pattern while abortion providers challenge the law. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed that law back in May. He said the new measures would protect unborn children from, quote, the ravages of abortion. Last week, those restrictions got even tighter with another law in Texas. Abortion-inducing medications can no longer be prescribed to patients beyond 7 weeks gestation. The FDA says that these medications are safe up to 10 weeks. This new state law went into effect as the number of medication abortions continues to rise across America. The CDC reported a small increase in the number of overall abortions from 2018 to 2019. That's the latest data they have. But zoom out, and you'll see abortions in America are decreasing. The Guttmacher Institute has worked to contact every abortion provider and keep an accurate count. And behind every one of those statistics is a story. Women, couples, families who make difficult personal decisions every day. Nearly 1 in 4 women in America, according to the Guttmacher Institute, will have an abortion by the age of 45. Let that sink in for a moment. Nearly 1 in 4, perhaps including you or someone you love. Today, we asked for your stories of making that deeply personal decision and your reflections on it today. We will share a few of your responses in just a moment. But joining us now is Amy Hagstrom Miller. She's the founder and CEO of Whole Women's Health. It's an independent abortion services provider with clinics in 5 states, including Texas. Ms. Miller, welcome to the program. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Could I begin with just your reactions to the ruling from the Supreme Court today?
You know, I think on paper it's considered a win because the court is allowing us to continue with the challenge. But really on the ground, it's a big loss. We need to block this law from being enforced because it's harming Texans, it's harming families and communities. We are having to deny upwards of 80% of the people who come to us for care, and the law has been enforced over 100 days now.
You said, in terms of the women who use your services, that about 90% of them are more than 6 weeks into their pregnancy. I can imagine you've been spending a lot of time in the last few weeks and months talking about and strategizing for what this would mean for them if this remained the law in Texas.
Yes, and you know, upwards of 70% of our patients are parenting already. They're working parents juggling their children's school, their education, their jobs in the pandemic, just like the rest of us. And for folks to be denied access to essential health care that's really timely in nature, like abortion is, during a pandemic is devastating. And our staff are being forced to enforce a law, really kind of serve as agents of the state, enforce a law they don't agree with, and that's really designed to keep them from doing the work they love. It's been devastating for the healthcare workers as well as the patients we're having to turn away.
Can you talk about, just so we get a better sense of your organization, some of the other services you provide? I know Planned Parenthood makes a very large point of saying that they do much, much more than just abortion services, and indeed they do. What other services does your organization provide, or does it focus more squarely on abortion services?
So we are very proud to provide abortion services. They're oftentimes the most stigmatized and targeted services in the healthcare field when it comes to women's healthcare specifically. We provide preventative care, gynecology care, contraception as well. But especially in our 4 clinics in Texas, we serve communities where abortion is really targeted and stigmatized. And over half of the clinics in Texas have been shuttered in the last few years. So it's really essential that we can provide that access to people who are already traveling hundreds of miles, and now they're even being forced out of the state for a procedure that's extremely safe. It's common, and it's less dangerous than the drive people are being forced to make as they're forced out of the state.
When you say that you're proud to provide abortion services, what makes you proud?
I'm proud to be able to sit with people when they make a big decision that is about their future and their dreams and their education and their families. Nobody gets pregnant to have an abortion. Abortion has a lot of sort of moral and ethical issues that people sort of explore in the course of their decision. But I'm proud to sit with people when they choose a course for their life without shame and without stigma, and sit with them and provide them compassion, empathy, and really high quality medical care.
We got a number of comments from some of our viewers about their experiences with abortion services. Thank you so much for those of you who shared your stories or even considered sharing them. We greatly appreciate it. One viewer tweeted, "One thing that's hard to articulate is how having the choice available empowers some of us to make braver choices in life than maybe we would have otherwise. I never needed an abortion, but I wouldn't be the same person today without choice." Amy Hagstrom Miller, talk a little bit more about that if you could. Just the impact on women in the areas you serve, even those who maybe don't need the services, but just culturally, in terms of the impact of knowing that they may become, for the long term, much harder to get.
Sure. So I think access to safe abortion care is fundamentally important for us to have true equality and autonomy as women, for us to be able to dream a future for ourselves that's equal to men. And I think your viewer is right, that it doesn't actually matter whether or not you've ever needed to access an abortion. Just simply knowing that you could allows you to plan your future, plan your family, plan your career differently and more powerfully. And I think there's a brief that's connected to the Jackson Women's Health v. Dobbs case that's written by economists that really shows how access to safe abortion is directly connected to improving the status of women in this country. Our economic outlook, our education outlook, our mental health, our physical health is directly connected to access to safe abortion in our communities over these last almost 50 years.
Can you empathize with people, men, women, on the other side of this issue, who argue that abortion is murder, that the very act of it is wrong, whether for secular or religious reasons? Can you empathize with that point of view at all?
Sure. I understand abortion is complex. Abortion, like I said, nobody gets pregnant to have an abortion. It's not on anybody's list of something they want to experience. I believe people deserve compassion.
I'm very sorry for interrupting you. Forgive me. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is, can you empathize with people for whom this is not complex at all? Can you empathize with people who view this very simply and very cut and dried as murdering babies?
So what I was getting to is that I come to this work because of my Christian beliefs. I come to this work because of the complexity and the empathy and compassion I believe people who face unplanned pregnancy need to receive. I have no agenda for what choice somebody makes, but I believe very strongly that they deserve our compassion and our empathy. I would never want somebody to choose an abortion if it's not the right decision for them. And there are many people who feel very strongly about abortion, and of course they shouldn't have one. I don't think they should then choose what choices other people have to make. I don't think we should force our beliefs on other people, especially our religious beliefs in a country that is supposed to be welcoming of people of all faiths from all backgrounds. And so I think a lot of the anti-abortion folks are coming from a extreme conservative Christian background, and I think they've really done some damage in some ways to the Christian faith. And I think it's important for us to embrace people, meet people where they are. And like you said earlier, all of us know somebody and love somebody who's needed an abortion in their lifetime. And I want that to be an experience that they can count on getting compassion and empathy, no matter what they choose.
Yeah. Very briefly, before I have to let you go, do you think that there's any room for common ground with people on the other side of this issue? This feels very much like an ideological fight to the death where neither side is willing to accept defeat. Is there room for consensus, for common ground on this issue before I got to let you go?
You know, I think the both side-ism is a little funny in this issue because 70 to 80% of people in this country support abortion rights, and the majority of people in Texas support safe abortion. So when we say both sides, I want us to be careful not to equate both sides. That said, I think there's plenty of room in this country for people to have differing opinions as long as they don't force those opinions on other people.
Amy Hagstrom Miller, founder and CEO of Whole Women's Health. I really appreciate you making time for us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's continue now with Kimberlyn Schwartz. She's the Director of Media and Communication for Texas Right to Life, a group advocating against abortion. Ms. Schwartz, welcome. I'm glad you're here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Could I begin with the same question I began with Ms. Miller, your reactions to the Supreme Court's ruling today?
Absolutely. Today's ruling is a bit of a mixed bag, but I think overall a victory for the pro-life movement. We had 2 lawsuits before the Supreme Court. One of them was from the Biden administration, and that was thrown out. The court dismissed that, recognizing that their arguments were bogus. The other main victory from today is that the Texas Heartbeat Act remains in effect and will continue to save children from abortion. And the third, too, is that the abortionist lawsuit at first included several defendants, basically anyone and everyone who could be associated with the Texas Heartbeat Act. And the Supreme Court said that was too broad and limited the number of defendants going forward, and that could impact how the lower court interprets and goes forward with this case.
With regard to the timing of this, I know that the 6 weeks in this law is controversial among some medical professionals who say that this is before some women may even realize that they are pregnant. What is your sense of how Texas squares the law with the lived realities of women in pregnancies, some of whom may decide to terminate those pregnancies?
The law states that if a preborn child's heartbeat is detected, that abortion is no longer legal. So it's not a specific time increment that 6 weeks is what the law says. That's not true. It's if the baby has a beating heart, which typically occurs around 6 weeks. Now, what's been encouraging is that we've seen an outpouring of support and interest in the pro-life pregnancy centers in communities all across Texas, and knowing that if a woman finds out that she's pregnant and she might have otherwise sought an abortion, she has those resources to be able to carry that child, nurture her, and get the resources that she needs to both pursue her dreams and not kill that child to choose life for her.
I guess I should go to another question that I asked Ms. Miller. I did want to ask both of you some of the same questions to try to get an apples-to-apples view, which is whether or not you can empathize with people on the other side of this issue. If you feel like you can understand why someone would take the contrary view, that women should have a right to abortion services, even if folks like yourself find it deplorable. Can you empathize with that point of view?
Absolutely. I think that people generally approach and come to their conclusions and their beliefs from a spirit of goodwill, that people don't choose their beliefs because they think that it's going to harm another person. They're usually trying to help other people. And I believe that most people who might believe that they're pro-choice find that empathy and hope for trying to help women, but that result is ultimately misguided, that abortion does not help women, it hurts women, and it even kills preborn women and people all in our society, that there are about 60 million people missing from this earth since 1973 because of abortion. So I believe
I'm sorry, you used a term that I've never heard before, preborn women? Are you talking about female fetuses?
The preborn child, a child who is not yet born. Some people will say unborn, but I believe that preborn shows hope that the mother will choose life there. So preborn children, preborn baby girls are being aborted at just massive numbers, and it's heartbreaking to see that. So the idea that abortion is helpful to women, I believe that people approach the issue who are pro-choice thinking that they're wanting to help women, and that is a great goal to do, but is ultimately the result is misguided. And we believe that we can find common ground there in agreeing that we need to help women who are in difficult pregnancies and even after the child is born. So that's what Texas Right to Life seeks to do, and we're really grateful to be able to take part in that mission.
I'd love to get your reaction to one of the stories that one of our viewers submitted. This viewer wished to remain anonymous, which we can completely understand. They wrote in part, "I had an abortion when I was 28. I was too immature to be well equipped to raise a child, and I knew it. I was ashamed. My parents still don't know. This past month, though, I was compelled to tell my 3 children that they would not be who they are in this world today had I not made the choice I did back then. I am so incredibly grateful to have had that choice. Ms. Schwartz, I wonder what you make of that particular story of a woman who clearly made some case-by-case decisions that must have been excruciating and has reflected on that as something that was a net positive for her life. How do you respond to that?
It's important to know that in today's society, there are more options than just abortion or parenting. That there's adoption, there is parenting, and also the safe haven laws are unanimous across the entire 50 states, where if a mother gives birth to a child and decides that she's not ready to be a parent, that she can bring that child to places like fire stations and no questions are asked, and she no longer has to make that balance between being a parent or perhaps pursuing her dreams, that we can have both.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Schwartz. I'm sorry. I interrupted the other guest, too, and I'm going to have to interrupt you this time. I'm really sorry. I know our time's limited. I have one more thing I want to ask you. I guess I'm asking for your reaction to this woman's story.
Absolutely. I think that there's some heartbreak there, and it's important to know that with every abortion, even though there can be heartbreak there, that there is healing afterward, that there are ministries within the pro-life movement, especially for people who might regret their abortions. But with this woman who sounds like she doesn't regret the abortion, that doesn't negate the fact that a preborn child has died. And it's tragic that the woman believed that this was her only option and that's what she had to do. So that's why the pro-life movement tries to make known that there are resources in communities all across the nation, and especially in Texas. Women can go to texaspregnancy.org and get free resources in their area. So that's what I would hope to see more across the movement, and that's what we're going to continue to do with the Texas Heartbeat Act.
Last 10 seconds before I have to let you go. Is there any room for common ground between folks on your side of this issue and people who believe that women should have access to abortion services before we go?
From a cultural perspective, I believe that we can have these conversations, and just knowing that we can extend goodwill towards each other, and that people generally want the best for each other, that we can know that we're both trying to help women and that we can find a common ground there. But from a policy perspective too, we believe that the preborn children should be protected from the moment of fertilization. So that's what we kind of look at going forward, but there's always room for conversations, and knowing that we can have these discussions with the best intentions for each other.
I appreciate you making room for this conversation. Kimberlyn Schwartz with Texas Right to Life, thanks very much for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.